All right. Recording in progress. Yeah. Boys band. I prostrate to the Arya triple gem. Thus did I hear it one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on mass and Bhajan monks in Ranchgura, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration on categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, should look upon like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extension of ignorance and so on up to including no aging and death and no extension of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on the dwell in perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration and without fear, having completely passed beyond error to reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awakened to unsurpassable path of complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of the great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Para Samgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration, commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the worlds of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrate to the gathering of the kinis in the three chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space by the powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation. Look after practitioners like her mother, her child. Akasamarata Sharara Saramaya But the teachings of the three supreme jewels possessing the power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified, Shintun Kori Soha. May all negative forces opposed to Dhamma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from problems and harmful conditions to Dhamma. May all enjoyments be in accord with the Dhamma. And may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here and right now. Sashi Paki Joshi Me to Tam Ri Ram Ling Shi Ni De Gen Padi Sangye Shindu Mikte Owa Giro Kunamda Shin La Chupa Shuidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyataya. Sorry.
Sanji Chedan
Tsogi
Tsogi
Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dani Kyasuchi Dagi Chishigi Betsonangi Drola Benshi Sangye Drupasho
Sanji Chedan Tsogi
Tsogi Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dani Kyasuchi Dagi Chishigi Betsonangi Drola Benshi Sangye Drupasho
Sanji Chedan
Tsogi Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dani Kyasuchi Dagi Chishigi Betsonangi Drola Benshi Sangye Drupasho
Kanki tuzenye zone tawa tamche pambichere tambichun denze kodam kela chance lo. Good morning, everyone. And kazi tsamdwa shugi isra. The kazi tsamdi zawat losha insari. Menam tudan dembata. Sanga dejun drubarsho. Kandru sumbo la soba inji semda dengyuchiks.
And going back to the text, we're going to pick up from the point that we left off yesterday. So first of all, just to remind ourselves where we are in the text, we're looking at point 3, dedicating so that they have temporary endowments and pleasures. And this is part of dedicating for the welfare of humans in general. Now, we started to cover the third point in this section, which comes under the heading of dedicating so that all basic necessities are complete and that harm is pacified. So we've covered verse 39 in that section. Today, we're going to pick up from verse 40. Let's look at this verse. May medicines be potent and recitation of secret mantras be effective. May the kinis, rakshasas, and so forth be endowed with minds of compassion.
Reta tumu nangwandi menam tudan dembatan sanga dejun drupar show slongdi pigita sikchik tungdas ta junju nalaya sanga sek sikchik digi ta khatsingi manganzu ta mulum di gozu ondi ne ani jaschimu shivali kombatatu di jawadoji changi ta kombola na mebati ani shishabi tonu sungu yore sedadi ta ngus tembares ra ani ngus ani song nalala ya ngus tembares ta ina ya ani chik sanga kola ya jaschimu shivali ki shu chikpe ani dochoki somba nanshi chin song mena yang ta tula ya yons ani zogde yoba chik and then song dusu tonda chidan da toba yomarde ina kanji and dusu toni drip to gores.
One thing to pull out from this verse, looking at it again, when Shantideva make such aspirations, may medicines be potent and the recitation of secret mantras be effective. So the recitation of secret mantras is mentioned here. Shantideva's intention in this manual, in composing Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, is to lead living beings, sentient beings, to the state of Vajradhara. So it is here clearly indicating explicitly indicating that the intention is to lead sentient beings to the state of Vajradhara. However, when we look at the way that Shantideva teaches here his guide to Bodhisattva way of life, he teaches that in accordance with the system of sutra. Although the teachings here are given by and large in common with the sutra system, it seems that the deep intention of Shantideva is to lead sentient beings to the state of Vajradhara, which means that also in line with the system of mantra.
Tere dinzata di khartyang go islam di danganzu bigi ngenjon chansu yantabe tawasun la ya ani labche an di khoni tindo simja thamji gi chudo sanji kombo drup thugre weslana di tela inchi minchi ani sanga ki nyamlengi ani gen tabchene mandro thamech ro inchi minchi ro goyaji chagores dinza ani thar dom gyaondi ani sangalaya tugdeach ro di jagar kebe ani Nalanda gita keba pi ta pendu chubden songa nanda gendu choni songa di tsamagi ani gomba phasa di ani dindichile ya phabiores ro
La pendu chubden nane de la inyen dan chudo de la soba konso sanga daran kelen salve.
kelen sar samudnge.
So then here when we train in the three principal aspects of the path, the determination to emerge from cyclic existence, the mind of enlightenment, and the correct view. Having done that, you might wonder, can sentient beings attain the state of enlightenment solely depends upon the training in the three principal aspects of the path? Here, the intention is indicated by the author of this text is that you have then to seal whatever you practice with the practice of second mantra. And therefore, your attainment of the state of enlightenment will, at the end, depend upon the practice of second mantra, which is the view that was held by the great masters of the Indian tradition, the 17 Pandits of Nalanda, the 6 ornaments, the 2 supreme ones.
Tere kansanada bena tapendu chubdendu sam shendu pigi sam shendu sigba kiwa shechini ani temba ta droyu tenla ya ani chensha bachi himbadi tesam yomarwas ro tesam yomarwas ta yina ya kababu ki dosha kyongtang ki toni songtang ki toni di ko susu pi kababu ki chale ki toni dogre modo ngeba tenla ya antu samalope ani sanni semba chimbu kombalne shede ba ngani jaji gyatama killing yusro
De la panda yor.
panta tebatira
La ine de chicos, de la longtemps de
dindime.
Anyway, in my discussion with Geshe, I said that no, since Geshe mentioned that was also the intention of the 17 Pandits of Nalanda, amongst them we have the 6 ornaments and 2 supreme ones. I said, but what about masters like Vasubandhu and Dharmakirti and so forth? Kind of, since they propounded, the intention in my question was that since they propounded views that were Hinayana views, and in the classification of those masters, some of them are classified as masters that were more hinging on the Hinayana. Can you assert that actually that was their intention as well? Well, Geshe says that he believes that you can in that in entering into cyclic existence for the sake of the teachings and for the sake of sentient beings whose mind has to be tamed, those masters have taught in accordance with the disposition of others. So some of the teachings that they gave were particularly teachings that were suited to the disposition of some disciples. And still Geshe said that he believes that their intention was still to lead sentient beings to the state of enlightenment.
나디타 반로모 고시라 어디레 딘자다 메넘토단 덴바 상가데준 드버세디 아니 사제디 네버시옹 오세디 로 네버 당안줄이야 아니 네버텔이야 아니 지 첸낭 숨기 아니 네버틴디 용구여러스 비기다 치기 아니 직딘 비기다 지 가서다 아니 메다메마이나 소베토니 아니 간주 취치발이야 아니 곰 냠는 치발이야 냠는 센덴 치발이야 그 아니 레기 왕기 아니 지 네버 용대바 되니 지 아니 종유 토니 네버 용대바 다 독슈디 난기 샘 토니 아니 지 마리바다 아니 차당나 소비기 시체니 아니 샘 축 디왕기 룽아기 메기위 잡아진다 원이 강수 문담에발에 소기야디 아니 네바디 조 나니 레고라스 인자 디즈 참말로 아니 시야기 체도다 아니 상아 데준트버 쇼세디 안 투면딘 제기어라스
저는 그런 데 지난 산송된 소임바. 그래서 난기 가사 상원기 너바디 직 소임바 소임.
레다스 사면 네버슬라나 다징한 좀 만통야기 베기 아니 직된 베기 즉 무만이라 소바다 로 나쇼를 가비기 다 두수기 네버디 아니 가 상원을 자자나 디디로스
It says in this verse, may medicines be potent, the recitation of secret mantras be effective, may the kidneys, rakshasas, and so forth be endowed with the mind of compassion, which means that may we not experience harm, may we be able to avoid our harm from the outer, the inner, and the secret level. So harm that we experience in relation to an outer level, external level, harm that is inflicted upon us by, you can say, by humans and non-human beings. Those that create some obstacles for us for practicing effectively, for having a good practice. And then we have the harm that can be caused by the elements, for example. Or we have harm that is inflicted upon us that is created by the internal anger, attachment, and so forth, which are based on ignorance, which cause us to perform actions which are non-virtuous, causing rebirth in miserable states of existence, such as the unrelenting hell and so forth. We can also then speak of harm from this on the secret level, in the sense that there are those that, sometimes we experience harmful things that we cannot really see, or that we cannot really see directly, like you could say those sentient beings which are not necessarily seen by ourselves as human beings.
데다 다 맨당 안투즈토니 내가 게페나다 종신 네발로 소바 종시 투발 때니 류그 나살레 안투즈 아니 나주 맹토니 아니 내가 도투야치 여러와스 다 조디 아니 다 난기 네바티 뉴무투송고 네바티 다 상아 데주 체치니 상아 데주 체발 때니 아니 난기 뉴무투송기 네바티 칸스 도고레 세티 로 디르와스 디케시슈티 디치디다 안 딘디 체발야 피 간주지 페나 마네라 소바 아니 지 템베 상아라 소바 딘디지 장 투바 잠기 아니 딘디기 네바 찬자 도고레스나 디 칼카고 베르와스 다이 임바이나야 상아 데주 체단디 야부 심바이나 피다지 아니 간주 다 규디신 갑니마 송샤에 로 상아 데주 체단디 야부 미바 짬이 토니 아니 데주 체투바나 야체 야탐바 셀 투야기 니바요레스.
So we experience harm by, for example, the four elements, and they cause an imbalance in the four elements causes sickness in the body. So here, when this verse says, may medicines be potent, may medicines which are treatment to the imbalance in the elements be effective. But also, when we think of another level of medicine. May medicine be effective in dealing with our own afflictive states of mind, which means that may we be able to develop antidotes to the inner harm that is afflicted upon us by anger, attachment, and ignorance. And then we have the recitation of secret mantras. So it's the recitation of secret mantras can be enough in order to overcome harm. In that, if you just recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, or if you recite Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra, would it be enough to overcome the harm that we experience? It's hard to think that simply by reciting mantras, we'd be able to overcome harm. But if you know how to practice mantra together with sustaining visualization, in which you focus on a particular thing and you develop certain aspects to your mind, and with that meditation, you recite mantras that can develop into a power that will help you to overcome different forms of harm. Certainly 100% it can remove, it can dispel harm that we experience.
Da yung maros ine zu di sanga deju chibi kala ya ani kolong ani ninji da chanju sem ki ro sagdun de da chanju sem slaondi simjan tamji ki tendo tojalane mo yanda bo zobi sanji komba tendo nyebi da chi numba shukta ji toni ani sanga ki nyamne ya jugu dos da jugu di pigi ani sanga ki nyamne ki zu di 가서다 즉 제두기 아니 산지고 고송 투숨데 즉 다다랑 즉 소소 안디기 텔레야 무스 메바치고는다 아니 소소 든드 메바치고 덴디 셀야부 답니 아니 베 미버드 찌치 네비 토니 데니 아니 나드 데바이나 아니 디기 네바티 조기용거레스라 딘디지 토는 너르드는 딘디지 토는 조고거레스 콜론 찬주기 셈기 아니 제 슉 작보직 선바 아니 살타베디 아니 자와세다 집이 고송 투승기다 아니 비기 셀타 데니 아니 셈라야 딘디지 샤니 아니 나니 아니 생아 죄바이나 데바드 사바이나 뎀바이나 데는 다 티레스라 다 딘디지 톤다 직 참망부 사바이나 아니 룽아 이সম라야 아니 코미디 탭치니 교탄 투야디 용고요레스 저 상아 대전 저버 쇼세디 딘디지 톨 상다나 야부요서레스라.
So of course many things can be said with respect to the line that says may the recitation of second mantras be effective, but still when you think about how a recitation of mantras should be done, it should be done first of all motivated by compassion, which is the basis for the mind of enlightenment. So it should be motivated by the two, compassion and the mind of enlightenment, and thinking that for the sake of attaining the state of complete and perfect enlightenment, I am going to engage with this practice. And this is how you engage the practice of second mantra, first of all, in terms of your motivation. Then as you practice the secret mantra, you should either visualize yourself as being a Buddha in actuality, or you might be visualize the qualities of Buddha speech and mind, the qualities of body, speech and mind of a Buddha in front of you. And with developing this single point and placement upon either yourself or the deity in front, you recite mantras. And therefore, based on bodhicitta, motivated by bodhicitta, you perform a certain visualization. You then completely, you become completely single-pointed with your body, speech, and mind in visualizing the qualities of body, speech, and mind of Buddha. And through that, you recite mantras, you accumulate mantras, and so forth. And if you do it in this way, if you do many recitations in this way, wherein your body, speech, and mind develop those habits of enlightenment, you can, on that basis, attain the state of enlightenment. So this is Geshe how we can contextualize this wish for mantras, recitation of secret mantras, to become effective.
예, 간도 숨볼라 소바 닌지점도 땡큐 직세 따라 내놈 시위 투던 템바탕 Shigi so the sanga shonla shigi one tasegi any chik leche tang tolaya tiungor to dribber chibi sanga ji devji chibi goba chetar sombanam dribber shows kandro the sombo the jensen soba chambisam the dember kuchis
May sky dwellers or Dakinis, Yakshas, and so forth be endowed with mind of compassion. So we read through the first part of the commentary yesterday. Let's continue with the reading of that. So it says, picking up from here, may medicines be effective in curing disease, and may the purposes of the recitations of secret mantras accomplishing, pacifying, increasing, and other activities be accomplished the way they were intended. May sky dwellers, Dakinis, Yakshas, carnivores, beasts, and the like become endowed with the mind of love.
Terida, the Mundaba the Tavang was long, that did it, that dinema, Sondandi, Nanzu Namju, Semi Shinane, Samjan Tamja Deva, the Dember Kuji, Dunga the Tower Kuji Slindi, Zu di, Pigita, Tikabdulea, Zu Nisa di, and Lu Deva, and Lu Dungar. The Zu Shisha was sort of Yungioresra, Tandan di Kabdulaya, and Ninjisam the Dember Kuji seg. Sanga Dejun Drubber shows, Kanji Nangi Tobi on the Tuzu, and Samrana Jani. Then Mundeba the Tango Dia, Mundeba, and Samgi Chagdam Monsum, and Jigdala Soba, and Yimidela Soba, Tuzu, the Tavern Watch, Samrana Jan. Digisungu Saris.
And then it continues in verse 41 in making aspirations for being separated from unwished for things. So it is similar to what we normally wish for when we practice the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. So when we recite the four immeasurables, often what we wish for in our mind is mainly directed at a physical level. May sentient beings have physical pleasure and well-being. May they be free from suffering and pain. But here, the aspirations that we make are also mainly, you could say, targeting the mental level. Like, for example, may they be endowed with the mind of compassion. May they develop qualities of mind. May they be free from inner afflictions, from anger, attachment, and their foundation from ignorance. May they be free from fear and other states of mind that afflict the mind.
That's Simjan Gayan Dumakurs, Simjan Gayan Dumakur, Jigda Neighbor Munkushi, Gaya Yimideva Makirchik.
May sentient beings never suffer, commit negativity, or become ill. May they not be afraid or despised, and may they never have unhappy mind.
Terdinza T. Kabdulaya, that two Chanjuk Sem Shilla Shaviton, Chanjuk Sem Shilla Shaviton, the Simjan Tamjelia, Moyati. Tinza Takanji Chunjung Gon in Tabado, and Toma Delaya, the Yungudas, Chanju Semakiva Kiva never Konukon to pay a chedu, and Chunjuki, Levichu, Danijing, Chunju to Yamslengodan. Dan Tarn Hui Levo Kabduinaya, Hong Hodantia, and it's so di. And Chanjuk Sem Makiba Kiba never Konukon to pay a chedu, and Molam Jagayabadi, and it go Yani Anduta, Shonkoran on the Tangudasra.
So when we think of the recitation or the aspiration that Shantideva is making here, it is an aspiration involved with bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, which is consonant with the verse for the development of bodhicitta that we often recite. May the precious mind of enlightenment not yet born arise, and that arisen not incline but increase more and more. And Shantideva in his guide to Bodhisattva of life, in the 10 chapters that this text consists of, is mainly teaching this verse. May the precious mind of enlightenment not yet born arise. May that risen, not declined, but increased more and more. So here, particularly in the dedication chapter, it seems that Shantideva is doing it again and again.
예, 심전 가양 류도 동하와 마주치스. 근데나 심 직바당 젠기 네벌 민주시. 아니 가양슬란다 수양 뭐나 감 가양. 아니 이 메데와 마주치스.
The commentary says, dedication to be separated from that which is unwished for. May sentient beings be utterly free from physical suffering. May their minds be free from fears. May they not be humiliated by others, and may they be utterly free from mental unhappiness.
다니바 제라도 랍도 종이 되는 거 왔어. 다 랍종 되는 거 와. 겐든기 된도 치른 거 왔다. 겐홍기 되는 거 와. 겐홍미 되는 거 와. 수준 부숨 써본 거 와. 제부 대발로 론쳐본 거 왔어.
Then we have dedicating for the welfare of the ordained in particular, dedicating for the welfare of the Sangha in general, dedicating for the welfare of bhikshus, dedicating for the welfare of bhikshunis, dedicating so that there is excellence of ethics, and dedicating so that they experience the effect, bliss.
제 다담부 겐든기 된도 치른 거 왔네스. 수글랑 칸놈 로바타. 가든기 옐레니 쇼.
Beginning with dedicating for the sake of the Sangha in general, may the monasteries flourish and excellently remain due to reading and recitation. May the Sangha always be concordant, and may the aims of the Sangha also be accomplished.
자와카르 치구 예메도디 찬장치 디나로다 숭구여러스라 조 간주 자와디 피기게 로버트솜 방와삼디 세 데려왔다 디 아니 다 규마치 뒤따웃 아니 최고야 아니 디다 냠도 아니 지 아니 겐든 톱펜스 아니 통부치는 데야 라 아니 통부생이디 직직래야 가서다 직 만배당 술자당 통종다 덴지 많이 비토니 직직래야 가리 펜토도나 덴지 직기 펜도치는 단냠도 내야티 겐든 템버세 디세고라스 마도 직 따와 피긴간주다 직 따주시온디 산지비 종이래야 따와도 접어시온디 아니 직 따와디 튠 course tinri sungo maras ti yon tavyo maras ra ani gendun ten introversions da rabt chung godun ten ra introversions
최선 그런 탐보디 rabchun사디 방와 something ani loba 카릴로
tusum
okay. So in general, here this verse indicates what monastics do. So you can say that here in a complete sense, Shantideva is indicating what we ought to be doing. So focusing on our training with study and contemplation. In our practice, we abandon what needs to be cast aside, and we also develop absorption or concentration. So those are the things that monastics, you can say, general do. But on top of that, what Shantideva is saying here is that in our communities, we should make sure that we live in harmony, in agreement with each other, rather than sometimes behaving in a way that we become proud, we look down on others, we pull ranks and so forth. Here, Shantideva is saying that we should remain in monastic communities and supporting each other, making sure that we get along, that we live in harmony. Which means that in living as a monastic, living in monastic communities, what we do is not just focus on developing Buddhist views, but we also practice on the behavior side, the practice side.
Dendiro shasarada dina mamushet 다 줄랑 칸은 네비 겐든 남 송르 공된의 제보 lokbatang kadun ki tarsin gibi lebar never shows tütağdu gendün gevi çavala tuk tombatang gendün ki simjenle pembalı sobi dünya çeder gombaşın river shows.
Then it says, in a commentary, may the Sangha who live in the monasteries abide well by spreading and increasing the Dhamma through reading and the teachings of the Buddha and the elucidations of his thought and reciting prayers.
Nibo gelong gütendung oanis, laban dübi gelong tak, emba takjan tobar şok, yewan tamji panin, sem leron gom kürçiks.
Then the next section, let's look at it. The next section in verse 43 comes under the heading of dedicating for the welfare of bhikshus in verse 43. It says, may monks who wish to train also find solitude, having abandoned all distractions, may they meditate with serviceable minds.
Terida tatsu di emba takjan tobar segi, emba ti ta lu nga yiksam la ya, jidang nam yi ta jare yorwas, ta jidang lu gi emba segi, lu gi emba gi dosho lu dunzin segi, ani nganzu chawa pigi gi ani tsin danhangi chik ani sego nemel kicheduta chik chawa mabu chede joros o tutsu pa ani le tan cheni le tani chawa tutsu pan cheni ta tanji shiba nanshi ani lobo tuzom pawan samding tolaya ani zomba chik yobayna ta lu ani dunzili emba sengidi chagores.
It says, may monks or bhikshus who wish to train also find solitude. So we can speak about solitude or isolation on different levels. There is physical isolation, verbal isolation, mental isolation. Here we begin, first of all, with physical isolation, seeking solitude. So ordinarily what we do in our life, in general in societies, we focus a lot on the physical aspect, seeking food and clothing and social interactions, possessions, and so forth. Seeking physical isolation or solitude begins with isolating our body. So we give up those activities that are mainly oriented towards securing food and clothing and social interactions and so forth. We give them up, and instead a focus becomes our training in study and reflection, and then training in abandonment, in that we develop realizations, we develop absorptions and so forth.
Terida lun dunzingi embassy di pigi tachik me longdong songrachilaya ani lu deba zanggu lun dunzinli embadi zawnin ta songu yo marwasra ani me longdong jila wandro ani suzu desaki wichse ani suzu sayan tongyang chedu singaro ta mesuchili matu deba ani di chikjina embare de ina kam digi embagi godon di zawnin tsingo marwasra.
Which means that we develop physical isolation in which we isolate ourselves from the hustle and bustle of the world. But some people think that to develop this physical isolation in which you isolate yourself from the hustle and bustle of the world is to go and live in a place where no other human being lives, where you don't see anyone, where you don't hear anyone, so that you be able to live in that place and create maybe a veggie garden. You will be kind of growing your own food and so forth. And that would be the way to live in physical isolation. But actually, this is not the main point in cultivating physical isolation, because you might do that. It does not mean to say that, if you live in that isolated place and you feel really comfortable and you have things that you need, your food that you grow and so forth, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're actually cultivating physical isolation.
Tiradaji and Nimatapa Layachi, Mimambu Shoji took Desaji Yoba in a ya, and Suzuki Chuzu to Tata Delaya, Kandun Goya, Pechata Goya, Gomja Goya, and Tuzu di Trola Zao in the Madan Devaina, and Ludunzeli Ambigi, Godun di Chanza, Trudogoras Ra, Tidigoras Ra, and Shad the Sholayachi, and Pigitachi Revajab Dinging, and Kim missing in Gitachi. Mumbagi, and Kaswataji, Meja Pumoinari, and Yamtabi Sumjan Tindilaya, and Pentochi, Odus Drovana, and Chanju Sembigi, and Taji Gelon said the Nandan Dindijin Saris Ra.
So conversely, you could be living in a place in which you see many people every day, and still your routine could be quite focused on doing your prayers or recitations whenever they need to be done, that you focus on your study and you also meditate. And through that, you accomplish everything that you need to accomplish as a monastic. Even if you live in a place where you come across many people, still, if you stick to that daily routine in which you focus on recitation, on study and meditation and so forth, you can say that it accounts for that form of physical isolation, where also, apart from that, you might then see people that have some that ask you to do different things, that ask you to do some recitations or prayers for their sake. You might encounter those that do not have a lot of knowledge or understanding, maybe people from the laity and so forth, that in which you could help, or you might help those that are in need. And through that, you accomplish all the meaning of that physical isolation.
Repena, on the Sanji Chu Chedan the Sondi, and it Dushi come the Mebala Dene, and it Chu Songor Mado, Dushi come the Mebadan Tungumuduna. Chu Kandaji Samu in Bainaya, and Chu depend to Maris. The Kungu Nizros, Ra, Tinza, that Dushi come down Mebal Dimbig Chu Jison Guyana, and Dushi come down Mebag and Rodandi, Shingo Dasra. And Kukyo Jilaya, such a Kukyo Jila, Suchilaya, Mentosa Jila, Denny, Penangadangadawachi, and me Rodan da, Chichedan da, Samgum Gudot, Chi Shingmarosta, Tinza, and Shanlaya. And Simjan Tamja Pashani, and Susu the Rigtumbigi, and me Drovalaya, and the Pentom Mutung and Chabana, and Chanju Sam Gomia Digi, Gode Major Chagados. Then the Jawarmaji Sungo Tutadura, Kadu in a Shogi Chuchigni Laya, and in Zamlingi, and in Sangur Sirius, Sonyores, Sangur Dia, Zambalingi, and Chikuyu Rodan, and Guru Rodan, and Chik. Yolong Penzugi, Chik Sonyordi, and she carried then Yunguyum, Tintigi, Tachik, and Sangur Kadidi, and Sikche, and Tetan Tumbigi, and Kalab Nani, Pigors, di Gacha Jatamadi, and Zambling Mikoralaya, Pendochim, which Chegos.
Dharma should be taught in accordance with the disposition of others. And even if what you teach is very profound Dhamma, if it does not accord with the disposition of the target audience, it's not going to help them, even if what you teach is very profound. So we need to teach in a way that accords with the disposition of others, which means that for that end, we need to know what the disposition is of the person that the Dhamma is taught to. So in some sense, Geshe says that for him, for example, if he takes this physical isolation into literal practice and lives in a place that you can say that is poor materialistically, where he doesn't meet or see anyone or comes across others very seldom, then it's not going to be able to develop the knowledge of the dispositions of others. It's not going to help in terms of developing an insight into the inclinations and aspirations and so forth of others. So He's honest. The Dalai Lama, for example, says that he wakes up early in the morning, he does his practices for a few hours, then he spends some time listening to the news, catching up on the affairs in different parts of the world. What people are going through, what is the way of living, what is the way of thinking, and so forth. And through that, he brings that into the teaching that he gives, and he tries to advise others in accordance with the way that they live and behave and so forth. So this is a way of being of benefit to others.
Tilda, then Sam Yangwa, Tamjepan said, Sam Yin said, two and Chagdangi, Shaman to Somatelia, Shagorazra, that Chagbadi, and Chibarda, Sin Di, and it Togu Tamsum Soba, on Dindrilia, and Chaya, Shuchildroya, Yanchi P. Daniel Parsumgi, and in Dushi Shuchimbiwangi, and it's Dala Magala Soba, and Dindigita, Yongagita, Semjora, the two Mevachin. Samjan Tam Chelayachi, and Chigurk Tanyum Lot Jani, Rotubana, and Semi di Semdi, Kaza, Sem Iwa Pangsadi, Telekogoras, Tindiji Yongogores.
In verse 43, it says, having abandoned all distractions. Here, Geshe takes distractions to be mainly referring to the distraction of anger and attachment. So, for example, looking at the way that we are susceptible to some distraction. Sometimes we are distracted by attachment to food and clothing and so forth. Or anger towards those that we dislike. We call them enemies and so forth. These are the main forms of distractions that we are susceptible to. So when it says here, having abandoned all distractions, then it is the distraction of anger, attachment, and so forth, in which we come to see everyone is equal, devoid of attitudes such as anger and attachment. This is the main form of distraction that is to be abandoned.
Sem Yaman Tamjipani, Lusum Shindu Jambi, Devi Gani, Sem Lerongi, Gava Gomber, Kurchix. Lotsam.
So then, looking at the commentary, it says, may the pure Gelongs, bhikshus who wish to protect their training from degeneration attend the isolation of the recognition of the body, which is an obstacle to mortality. To morality. Is the body an obstacle to mortality? No, actually, it's a body. Yeah. Anyway, but if you Gelongs who wish to protect the trainings from degeneration attend the isolation of the recognition of the body, which is an obstacle to morality. Having abandoned all mental distractions and having become adorned with the bliss of mental and physical pliancy, may they meditate on virtue with pliancy.
Dorduna Kanji and Sam Les Roma said, Lusum Les Roma said, and Kishu Chagoras, the Sam Les Roma said, Sam Pilayachi, you'll conduct the Trevainaya, and Chagdangi Mantrovachik, Sam di Chagdangi Shaman Mantrovachik, Tolia, Shatubaina, Sam Les Roma said, Chagoras, Pena Lamanchivina son dead. Chilla cantu gomla jorsech. But you can't to by ya. And Tanganzu let Hambolaya, you'll then teondi, Sam you'll then teondi, Kaukolaya, Chavashuchimbolea, and it's Kaukolaya, Shadan Shuchimbolea, Kanji Chanyambajik, Yonya Pemazu Kawachagoras. The dos of a Jani, most of a Jan, those drawn the Kanzam Jilaya, you can't then Tebainaya, Chak dancing in the sound in the Mayomba, Korangoy Netsulia, that to get young Baina, and Sam D, and Gavala Comset, Sam less wrong Cursadi, Tindigilia and Koguyores.
Here it speaks about the development of pliancy and such, which means that mainly what we seek to develop is a body and mind which are serviceable. serviceability of body and mind, which means that when certain things are encountered, when certain objects are encountered, we want to encounter them without being captivated by anger or attachment, without being governed by anger and attachment when the mind engages with those objects. If we're able to engage with those objects when they're encountered without anger and attachment, it means that our mind has been made serviceable. And it is something that the Lama Chopa refers to when it says, whatever is encounter or whatever you encounter, apply to your meditation or to your practice. So sometimes we encounter some objects and strong attachment arises in our mind. We encounter other objects and strong anger arises. And it's hard to reach a balanced state of mind if our mind still reacts with anger and attachment when certain things are encountered. So here we train, we continue with our training so that at some point, whatever we encounter it devoid of anger and attachment. And if we're able to encounter those situations without being subject to anger and attachment, it means that the mind can engage in virtue.
Da gelong mi ten dong was. Gelong manam nye denshi. Tabdan neba pangwar shos.
The next is dedicating for the sake of bhikshunis. That's the third point in this section. So let's look at the first. Let's look at verse 44. It says, "May nuns have material things, abandon quarreling and afflicting harm."
Da gelong manam chudingi nyebatan denshi. Tabatan. Tabsan tan chupa jaydra. Nampenzo. Shengi zewala subi neba pangwar shos.
May Gelongmas or Bhikshunis have the gain of being endowed with the Dhamma and abandon the harm of quarreling, being seduced by others and such.
Shiva Tsultrim Pusum Tsobangoanes, Tejan Rabdun Jongakon, Tsultrim Yamba Majurchi, Tsultrim Chavi Yi Choni, Tadu Diva Sejishos.
And then we have the fourth point, which is dedicating so that there is excellence of ethics. Looking at this relevant section. So we have 4 lines in this section. It says, sorry, that's not what I wanted to put on the screen. Likewise, may all the ordained not degenerate their morality through being disenchanted by corrupt morality. May negativities forever be exhausted.
Odirda di penata Tsultrim Chavi Yi Chong, said Tsultrim Char Mancher said Zu Semlaya Rali Yonza Tanji Kondu Shiva Nanshi, Jig Sem Les Romanchik Tolaya, and in Drotubaina, and Kaduyina, Jig Semlaya Karsoda. Temba Manyamba, Tenshi Manyambi Tony, and Drotuyaji, Yunguyoras, Tenshi Manyamba Yobaina, and Sosugi, and Pigi, Sam Chadang on the Sony, Chawa and Che Machoya, Noria Dozo, Gacha Gatamba, Sam Dini, Dom Tuyachi, Yunguras, the Dinji Chombaina, and it's Sutrum Chavi Yichon, the Tao Diva Show said. Yon towards the mother, Jingaranzo let Hambo Agilia, Chick Sam Les Ronji Machabaina, Pe Massiva Kalakabo, the Yoruas Ra.
So here when it speaks about not allowing ethics to degenerate, let's look again at this verse. It says, likewise, may all the ordained not degenerate their morality. In order to make sure that morality does not degenerate, we need to make sure that mindfulness and alertness do not degenerate. Which means that in order to prevent this degeneration from occurring, what we need is a serviceable mind. If we don't have a serviceable mind, degeneration will occur. Now, to make sure that this degeneration does not occur, we need mindfulness and alertness. Without mindfulness and alertness degenerating, if they do degenerate, it means that a mind then becomes controlled by anger or controlled by attachment, which means that it is controlled by mistaken states, so that whatever we engaged through anger and attachment becomes mistaken. We engage things that we ought not to do. If your mind becomes serviceable, then indeed you can reach the point in which your ethical discipline does not degenerate. But for us, we can admit that this is hard. It's hard to reach that point because, first of all, we need to engender a mind that is serviceable.
대전도 rab도 총학군 수점 냠바 매반 탈침바 규칙 수점 차원가 총나 디이 총니 네 겨바긴 따도 되고 세버 따도 되고 세지쇼스
It says in the commentary, likewise, may all ordained ones complete their morality and be without degeneration. Should they receive individual mistaken moralities, then may they renounce them by generating regret and always abandon negativity.
대당한조 rabjon 포문 솔야 개치슈디 안 수름디 따쩌다니 남바산기위 최종난게 비 짜와 타투 짜와디 시덴디 수름 송여레스 라도도 rabjon 포몰야 아니 수름디 개치슈로 베나가란 메제난로야 지 수수 통줄야 지 원니기 수름데 뎀비 겔론도조 아니 비지 케비기 년다슈 지 메바이나야 아니 탈 공부 좋은디게 아니 샨다 만다와치니 베삼 샨도 비 아니 공부 좋은데 딘디 만부 제뇽이스.
Here, Geshe feels that this verse indicates that for monastics, for male and female monastics, most important thing is ethical discipline, their morality, the training in morality. This is the most important thing. And Geshe, based upon his personal experience gained in his monasteries, has seen that those that guard their morality very well, they might not have throughout their life a lot of possessions. They might not be well off. They might not be famous and so forth. And still, when they pass away, they display those signs of accomplishment.
라담베나 안간조지 아니 타와도 좀 망부 여서진바이나 아니 그 저 펜솔레 때니 아니 소주 라바송야디 테스 레라우로지 아니 딘지 메사 야 아니 칼카요르스 베나 등안주 별이야 딩규 총이 갑들라 납중하고 깔래야 지동구 영납중하고 깔래야 아니 지 공바토 아니 차와당 좀아토서 매버스 베 아니 자망 토네 비길래야지 아니 김도 송주일어서 딘디 베딱 오늘 전에 삼유라 마숑에기 네술 딘디질 레비 갑들라야 아니 도수 수수 솔로 투바이나야 아니 동네진 대등이 아니 자와진 대등이 간주 파일이야 아니 다 베나 지동고에 든주 게주깔이야 나랑줄롬 니 롬바랑이야 아니 딘디지기 숨줄하 십지 마슴 숨지 두스라 안 갤론딘디 두조지 타살레 펜 페샤슈테 게시탄 딘디키 체어말 이난 타만 권한 넘버 공부존디기 삼신 메칸가 항상 거인딘디 직민님이진 딘딘 조도스라 디 다른 나랑 dom자야래야 오늘 단에게 뒤졌던 지지기 냠타고 깔레카고 딘디지 나와래야 지 소수 솔을 두고야네야 아니 만zem바 치지네 라바손 데비기 디기 냠내랴 삼송기 소와디 샘띵 유스라.
So when such aspirations are made for the sake of monastics, if you live in a community where there are quite a few monks and nuns, we support each other and in our training, and therefore it's in some sense become easier to first of all take up the training, but also to train in give up what we need to give up. It's easier to train in guarding the vows that we have. It's much harder when you don't have other monastics around you. So Geshe said that for example, in Tibet in 1959, after the Tibetan uprising, when Chinese moved in full force and there was a lot of destruction going on. So most monasteries were razed onto the ground. Monks and nuns were banned from practicing. Many of them were forced into living in lay life, forming relationships and so forth. And it lasted for a very long time. And then when things eased up after the end of the Cultural Revolution, so during the 1970s and during the 1980s, there were mainly only 30 or 40 gelungs that were left in the area that Geshe came from, right? So these are you could say that the only ones that were left. So since they were living like that for such a long time, they didn't have the opportunity to be trained well in the great monasteries. It's not that they were, not that they had a chance to undergo those intensive training and still living like that in secret, still maintaining the vow and taking that to be the principal thing that they focused on and still maintaining the vow. When they passed away at the end, some of them displayed those sounds as dying according to the wish, having some control over the process of death, in dying in a way that accorded with the intention, which then gain a deep sense of veneration and respect from the people around. Even when things became quite dangerous for them during those years of oppression, even at the course of their life, they still maintain the vow, the ethical discipline. So this type of commitment that is taken up when you got your training in ethical discipline, that even when it's becoming hard, even when it's hard, even if it is danger in your life, you're still going to uphold that ethical discipline, is something that is, you could say, paramount in the training of monastics.
Odirida dinza ina yanda nganzu rawan lombalaya kabkala testik karsan tushur drogoras ra tushur sudri da ina kashi gi da chawchi me ani chi me kansna jema khom ma kyuna ani yagbu yo mare sede tindi yungu do asra tezo ko gyunzin chi da rewas ra ine ngaran sambala nima chik rabdu chona ani metsen dinangi ta chik tension jires samsung nga di tsorgu yesra rabshon gten se di kewam bomtra mambul gyumba ina ya dagasi zawani ni chuta chon matu yajras kalaka bo shojras tinza tindi chonya ge kogop chi yobadi ani kewam bomtra mambula ya chik sabi givi gi en tuleten chonshawa jire to zawani ni lelawo yomaras tinza ngaya samna nimachi rabdu choma ina ya kawa sambu shochi di gewe pacha di ani susu sem gitila ya shagira samsam rochi di pacha di ani kewa gyune kanji samaji bardu di ani susu sem la ya pengira samsam ishi chedingi yinsiro tinza dindi la ya chi kashi rabdu chonga dili leondi ngone chane sem tingi gawa da jesu yirang yungu yos.
In some situations, when we enjoy a greater degree of liberty, there is a danger that we'll become too relaxed. It does happen that when you enjoy a lot of liberty, then you become too lax about your ethical discipline. Some people think that I'm not going to become a monk or I'm not going to become a nun because there is a danger that in the future my ethical discipline will be sullied, and that's not going to end up well for me. So in that sense, you can say that it is a valid sense of concern and think that if I become ordained and then I sully my ethical discipline, it's not going to end up well for me. It is a valid sense of concern, but still Geshe is looking at that from a different perspective. That when you become ordained, and even if you do it for one day, if you maintain your vow for ordination, even for one day, your life has been made meaningful. Because the basis for becoming a monastic, is not something that is randomly encountered. It is a result of virtues that have been accumulated over millions of lifetimes. In that, it's not that becoming a monastic is so easy. It is a result of cultivating virtue for such a long time. And therefore, if you guard your monastic vow, you can say that even for one day, then you think that this is something, a virtue that remains with me until I attain the state of Buddhahood. And therefore, it is beneficial for me. So really, it is something that is giving you happiness and joy. So if you're able to do it, then really you should be happy about doing that. You should rejoice in the ability to do that.
네, 드는 안다 다 직지디 마시바라 왔으라. 직지디 다 모두 증인 속에 투셔직 다 레왔으라. 베나 domba 넘버 숨 소더기 domba 찬주셈비 domba 상아기 domba 세지 용구요레스라. 디 베나 깔락학슈 로직 셰바나 아니 레하슈 디 소더기 domba 데니 찬주셈비 domba 데니 상아 domba 깔락학슈 작도 왔어. 송야래야. 아니 예배 전에 셰바나 예배 지슈디 상아 domba 아니 찬주셈비 domba 데니 소더기 domba 작도 왔어. 이내야 무슨 가르치고 왔은 상아 domba 슈사지라바 있나 빼디 토바 매바 태서 매바 유치 아니 슈로 슈차니 배시 당한주 샘라 때바이나 까마 카시 domba 야고지 대용구야나 테니 촐라 드야기 냥가마도 문도 아스라 소터그 domba 로지나 지 오네기 강가 슈지 마테나 아니 domba 디 견셔야디 베니뇽레스라 어 딘리 삼다운디 까까랑 안 삼다운다디 롱어드 제다이나다 삼다운다디 너르도 아스라.
Often we do not really understand how it works with vows. It might be that the way that we are introduced to different sets of vows is too laxed. In a sense that there are three levels of vows. There is the pratimoksha vows, that's the first level. There's the level of the Bodhisattva vow and the level of the tantric vow. And they're arranged in a fashion that is going from the easier one to the hardest. So the easiest level of vows to God is the pratimoksha level. The hardest one to keep is the tantric vow. In terms of incurring fault with respect to the ethical discipline that we uphold, it is easiest to incur faults with respect to the tantric vow. In that, when a certain tantric empowerment is given that comes together with the tantric vow, it seems that we have no doubts, no hesitation. We rush to take this vow, and Geshe is wondering whether we can keep this vow pure and clean for a certain amount of time. It seems that sometimes within minutes we already incur faults with respect to the tantric vow. Whereas with the pratimoksha vow, it is not like that. We take upon ourselves the pratimoksha vow, and it's likely that it's not that just a few minutes after that, immediately we will have already incurred faults with respect to the tantric vow. So then looking at the attitude that we have with respect to the different levels of vows, and that we might think that taking ordination is really hard, and yet we rush to take upon ourselves the tantric vow. This is indicative of, first of all, not understanding well the level of vows, or not being introduced to them well.
소더기 domba di shiden tawles songyores ro shi sodarg domba meba an tel tembi chanju sembe domba da sanga domba di khabu shuch
Dina ditas.
sorry odere khabu pe chagoras ani pena chanju sembe domba nambala yang ngundu jamju domba ngebordo gogodas ra ani megi chubung chutum de ngebordo song gogodas ra manzo di tolaya sanglo madanchi ani chanju sembe dombala ya nyabdiya den sanga ge dombala nyabdiya sunu chawayna ani kanya yongya meju chik aldam domba de pigi ki reda maris labayna 사원인다 제치자다 말 투무도스 딘디직 산점니 아니 직 제대바는 투수 졸라서로 제도스라.
But also on top of that, looking at those levels of vowels and the way that they're arranged, in which one acts as a basis for the next one in line, then when we think about, for example, first of all, taking the Pratimoksha level vowel, then on top of that, we can then generate the Bodhisattva vowel. The Bodhisattva vowel is based on the level of the Pratimoksha, or just second the kasa. Just sembe tomba di
Lembala. Ngela jamdri tomba mantala godas. Lembe.
Jane di Katsu kasa. Just sembe tomba len ki tento la genye ki tomba inchi minchi len gogi marwa.
Jamdri tomba. Konjosomna japsutuye jamdri megi chubung sutumji mena ani chanju sembe tomba toya yo marwa.
Just
어디라고? genyi 산주 genyi라고 말다.
최선디 캠주 돈바사디 소소답에 돈바데르 치기르베 아니나.
지그라.
이네 난균
티 콘도레 다 소데리 게크 나니 비글이야 장요 말어. 미기 좀 수렴디.
자 미게치 폰 카사 디 촌은디 디요 말에 이네 탄다간서 캠주기 돈바데는 캐시기로 와. 진상 캠주기 돈바디 소소답에 돈바 레베 야마는 미게치 폰 소진달라기.
캠주 돈바디 소데르 돈비 테레
이네 간서님 난균 칼라기오레스나 전체 선배 돈바디 랭이 된달라. 소소답에 돈바 시샤네 된데 최고 마베스 된데 돈바 말레나얀
디 소데르기엘 시고라. 소데르기 소데르기 시온디 캠주 돈바디나 장요 말다.
최선 마다나얀 소소답에 돈바 체기르베.
제
Okay.
Yeah.
So Geshe is saying that amongst those three levels of vowel, one acts as a basis for the next. So for example, within the Bodhisattva vowel, in order to take the Bodhisattva vowel, you take it on the basis of a Pratimoksha vowel. So I had a bit of discussion about it with Geshe because I said that before we said that it was said before that in order to take the Bodhisattva vow, you don't have to do it on the basis of the Pratimoksha vow. And Geshe said that actually you do it on the basis of the refuge vow. So you can take the refuge vow, which means that you only commit to go for refuge from this time on and for the rest of your life. And you haven't committed yourself to approach virtue in terms of taking kind of the full vow of approaching virtue. So the question is it part of the Pratimoksha level? Geshe says that it is a Pratimoksha vow, but it is not one of the 7 or 8 Pratimoksha vows, right? So you can take upon yourself the Bodhisattva vow. You do it on the basis of the Pratimoksha vow, the vow of virtue. But it's not necessarily that it is one of the 7 or 8 classes of the Pratimoksha vows.
Dendro tajan tobgyoni ten tushu munyamsho. Keba namnu kurwatan sonyam tajan nyebersho. Gyuni yonsu tabada chonum kundu tabarshos.
So when we continue with the next section, just a second. With the next section in the root verses. Also, having attained good migrations in verse 45, also having attained good migrations may discipline conduct not decline ever, even there. May the wise be honored, and may they also receive alms. May they continue be completely pure, and may they be renowned in all directions.
로전 대니 침을 된로 타진 토버린 균이 대연 두슈 미념을 쇼. 아 직den기 개발 남네 꿀바당. 소님 타진 니버 쇼. 균는 아겔 소바 메바 용수 타바던 촌놈 꾼드 님비 타바던 덴버 큐치스.
So continuing with the reading of the commentary, we're going to pick up from this line. Then, even if they attain a high rebirth in the next life, may even their discipline not degenerate. May the sages of the world receive praise and alms. May they continue to be completely pure, free from pride and such, and may they be pleasantly renowned in all directions.
단 리브 데발로 롱조봉 거와디 낭송 동을 menyo신 까와체바 메바야 라이 학비 류기니 대다 산진 율톱쇼스 윤줍쇼.
Then the last point in this section comes under the heading of dedicating so that they experience the effect, which is bliss, in verse 47. May beings not experience the suffering of bad migrations and also not undergo any austerities. With bodies superior to those of gods, may they quickly achieve Buddhahood.
대단디나노야 라이락비 류세치 라이락비 류 엔 티텐라야다 지 산진뉴튼 드버쇼 드버 큐치세 라이락비 류디 초니라야 제초사리 삼고도스라 지 라세디 만조다 지 수금 내리주된라 소바 안 딘디게 간사디 아니 살지 안 디게 류디 찌당 비게 따지 가서다 왜 그런지 지금 류다 아니 제시 이동와 슈치 요르다이나야 nganzu ngaji come to dengi mi lu nan shingi lu ti ten la ya an chi chi lu chi la ya ani tebi komba tu toyagi sanga doji tebi nyamlen di yung menza tele lagbi lu di ani torik mi lu de ro on diris an di tola ya ani ta kanji tözon konsu chechine sanjin yudu drobar kyuchi se malon di song chogros ra tich chagores.
It says in verse 47, may beings not experience the suffering of bad migrations and also not undergo any austerities. May bodies superior to those of gods. So we have a presentation of different forms of gods in different realms of existence, those of the desire realm, those of the form realm, and so forth. There are 17 different abodes pertaining to different classifications and so forth. Here, when we speak about a body that is superior to a body of a god, and then although you could say that a god body is something that is likely to be a mental body, which is beautiful and so forth, still, considering a body that is suitable for practice, someone that is born from a womb having the 6 constituents is a body that is serviceable for study, reflection, and meditation. This is a body of a high status rebirth, a body of a human being born from a womb having the 6 constituents. So in that sense, when we consider what is suitable for study, reflection, and meditation, then this body is higher or superior to a body of God. Of a god.
There danibadi hail tanji shudeyagi ani chi shelter tawa long tar yawa and tachi ani nanzu tachi mi luletene ani shindun be ani yewan trouble lu hail that daily habigi ani ludi and chi longsome jubachi tribute lu sachi yours ra anzu namjita gumi lu sede lu ti dripchini 디 톨레다 아니 세표 먹어봐 세 다가랑 끝내라야 아니 산지 드토야겠다 네버 찬사용이 루디 티차고라스 어디 땐 티드브치니 티톨레다 산지 뉴든 드버 쇼세 삼루 디타나 단 초고서레스라
Or you can say, with bodies superior to those of gods, may they quickly achieve Buddhahood, is understood in a particular sense. Like, for example, you can say that with a mental body, which is in the quality of being very subtle, and also you can say very appealing, very attractive, which means the illusory body, which allows you to attain a state of Buddhahood without having to go through the transference of life and death. May we be able to attain this superior body that is superior to the gods, and on that basis, quickly attain the state of Buddha.
도지다 드리텔라 샤기인스라 당한주 쇼숨 쇼쇼무 쇼숨 소리도 다 쇼숨디 알스 같이지레스 딘장한 단도 니마숨 저다 니마숨 순도스 디나노라야 대찬주 아니 만주 존중권은 타바르도 아니 지와딘디 여바나 만주 소담 찍스니스 아니 지와틀링 사공란 샤치 트원틀링친 캐는 되버나 아니 녜게 렌테베디 녜 렌퓨 퓨초그라스라
Yeah, did I undo Did I
yeah.
All right, so there's also a question here from Oli, but before I pass it on to Geshe said that we will leave the text here for now. We have only about 3 pages to go through in the commentary that we're using, and we still have 3 sessions to go through. So it is likely that we will finish the text next week, probably in the first day, but we're still, probably on Tuesday, and we still have 2 more sessions. So Geshe is suggesting that if you have any questions related to the material that we've covered right from the beginning, that we started, we started text last year. So during all the time that we've been studying Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, if you have questions remaining, any doubts, any questions, other things that you would, other areas that you would like to go into in relation to the text, we can bring them up next week, and Geshe will do his best in order to answer those questions. So the question that Oli is asking, Tilopa, Naropa, Mapa, Gampopa, Milarepa, etc., all attain complete enlightenment without entering the monastic pathway. Could this be an acceptable path in the West where monasticism may struggle to establish itself? Monasticism being the preferred option, of course. Dila Dilo naro marpa gamboba mila dilasoba gonzo zobe chanchu tobala gonzo raptu majune mikyagi shishane zobe chanchu tobares. Jesan gransana nuchola tawa da anima jene gonzo nanshin den de chanchu pan to yorbe yemena den de peshes Chigela pena Australia Rabjun de la Tunge Mamogoro, special Kalekabores, Jason Granson consonant Nyanichewa in Chagirves. That's Geshe's answer.
Kalekhabudo asra ani ta marba dan ani melal soba pigi ki sodar ki domba sonyale ani kalekhach tolaya ani bezun chichini sangi yorwasra tinza ta kharsa dati inza pena jizo melareba nanshingi 직 라마들 흠이기 빠라기 대바다 탐식 아니 교함에바치 송투기 여바이나 용 용식으로서 그 dim매바이나 깔가고 싶어라다 빼깔가고라.
In the case of Mapa, Milarepa, and so forth, they've worked so hard in attaining the state of enlightenment on the basis of the Pratimoksha level. They've really worked hard on the Pratimoksha level, and on that basis, they attain the state of complete enlightenment. So that's one thing. Another thing is that it is also a determinant of the state of enlightenment is based on being able to keep purely the Samaya bonds between teachers and students. So if you're able to maintain that bond in the purest way, if you're able to do it in a pure way, Geshe reckons that it is possible.
Chigi lombala nge samna ravjong pele lao. Lomba yarte me manche le lobjong yegyo. Pigile ya chik sozole ya zawan chinge meba. Ta chik nganzu lomba korangi kawal dena ya chik rosong tes chenbu yuanza. Penju utole lega tes chik chego sigre mado. Shemba chik rabdu chong matu yagi gyunzen kayamando ase. Lomba kyu duzu pene jaga lomba tang chik tuzul teda ta ngone ta tuzul ya kiranzu dawa chik ni tus den chik teda tene chik tsuwe kange desa kange tuzu samala dongle chene ta rabdu chongo chuna loyula mashong roji yordase.
Geshe reckons that actually in places like Australia, it is easier to remain as a monastic, in a sense that we enjoy good conditions. We also enjoy liberties in that we own our decisions, we make decisions, and no one forces us to either abandon our decisions or to make other decisions. We enjoy the freedom to decide what we want to do. So in that sense, it's easier to do it in a place like this. Of course, you can say that in terms of having to support yourself, it is an expensive place, so you do need to make sure that you have enough to get by. So this is something that you have to work out. But in terms of just enjoying liberties and the ability to make your own choices, Geshe actually feels that this is a really good place actually to be a monastic. Whereas if you go to a place, or if you live in a place where it's very poor, if you go into places that are really poor, if you live somewhere in India and then you have to live your life as a monastic like that, then it's much harder than living your life as a monastic here. So either you think about it, or you go to a place like that and you try to live just like them for a month or two, then you can really sense how hard it is to remain a monastic or to live in a monastic in a place like that, and how easier it is to live your life as a monastic in a place like this.
Thank you.
Gewadi nyudu da lama sangye drugyune drowa chikya malupa de salagupa sho chanchu sencho rinpoche make panan gegyochi keba nyamba me paya gone gondo pewa sho kanri rawe kowe shinkambi pendan dewa malu chunwene chenre siwan tenzin yatsoi shape site bardu tengyuru chi tu tu jan chin jang gun ya we ten zin kyong pe gun zu do po tse cho sung ko we le mon du du pa da so du je gun du sha ten sho